Let us now continue to look at the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. We're currently on the part of giving up attachment to the benefactor. As quarreling back and forth in order to gain honor and wealth degenerates the activities of learning, reflection, and meditating, it is the practice of Bodhisattvas to give up all attachment to the household of family, friends, and sponsors. Because of attachment to sponsors and friends who grant us honor and possessions, those who have entered the great vehicle may, for the sake of such honor and again, argue back and forth with each other. This will cause a degeneration of all the activities of the holy Dharma, such as learning, reflection, and meditating. Usually it is that people would quarrel over the possession as well as any kinds of benefits from the sponsors and sometimes the fame and status. One must therefore give up attachment to the residence of sponsors and friends. While it may be difficult to completely give up relating to the disciples, to the friends, to the sponsors, but if they were to grasp onto you and call you every day and talk to you every day and completely rely on you in that sense, then it is necessary to cut through and to give up such kinds of relationship, because it could become an obstacle onto your own practice. The worldly quarrels usually generate because of benefits. We can see that, we can observe that in our daily life. For example, whatever we say and whatever our actions are, if those were to harm the benefits of the other person or the other center, then quarrels could happen. Now, from the sutra, Inspiring Supreme Intention says that you should be watchful of gain and honor, since they produce attachment. You should also be watchful of gain and honor, since they destroy mindfulness. It is easy to generate the mind of attachment to gain and honor, and people tend to be very competitive with the gain and honor. However, the more gain and honor you have, the more chores you would have to engage in, and your mind would get more distracted. In such a way, slowly your meditation and contemplation and study of the Dharma would decrease, and it would even be destroyed. And then that would lead to the loss of mindfulness. In the same way, you should be watchful because they produce shamelessness and immodesty, make you regard the house of friends as a place for alms, make you miserly and make you abandon friends and be unfriendly. Moreover, in this way, a bodhisattva should examine all shortcomings of gain and honor. Having investigated them, you should decrease his desire and should not gather more. If you were to have more benefits and more honor, and if you really seek for them, then it could lead to obstacles to gain benefits and honor. As a practitioner, if you're a genuine practitioner, you would not encounter lots of obstacles. In Tibet, we say that if you're completely naked, then the lice would not bite you because there is no place for the lice to hide in your clothing. So as a person who is content with whatever they have, then there is no opportunity for the demonic forces to harm them. But once you have the mind to gain honor and fame and benefits, then they have the opportunity. Also from the same sutra, someone with few desires lacks all such shortcomings. For that particular person, there are no hindrances for the teaching of the Buddha. More, having understood the benefits in this way, a learned bodhisattva should, in order to give up all honor and again abide sincerely and be content with few desires. As a bodhisattva with wisdom, one should eradicate, one should cut through and give up all benefits and honor. One should be content with whatever one has. At the time when one is poor, there is really no other way but to be content with whatever you have. But once you started to have benefactors and to have more gain, then that is the time to learn how to be content with whatever you have. Now, Phuntsok Rinpoche gave the Fornintic empowerment back in 1984, and I came to Larangar in 1985, and I was really upset that I didn't have the opportunity to receive the Fornintic empowerment. However, the opportunity came up again in 1989, and we had to travel to a different place to receive the empowerment. Back then, many people would take a truck to travel to that place, and after calculating how much money I had back then, I thought that I could take the bus to travel to the valley and receive the empowerment. In fact, when I went to Mount Wutai back in 1987 with Phuntsok Rinpoche, I got a small tent. I actually made a small tent. It is a small tent made with two poles with a piece of cloth in the middle, and then you can tie up the two sides of it so that you can have this little tent would be able to provide a roof over my head. And when I went to Mount Wutai, I carried that little tent with me. That little tent, though very simple, but I was quite proud of it since I made it myself, and it provided shelter for me so that I don't have to, so that I won't get, I didn't get wet from the rainy days. For that reason, I carried that little tent with me and traveled to Dao to receive empowerment. I remember that I stayed overnight in Serta at a household who were really nice to me, and they even offered me a can of orange. It was really delicious. On the second day, I took the bus to travel to Bame, and at that time, it didn't really travel. The bus doesn't stop exactly at Bame, so I had to carry the tsampa and ghee as well as yogurt and my tent and cushion, and walked for 7 miles to arrive at the valley where we received empowerment. I remembered that I put up the tent right close by a tree, and whenever, because it was a valley and with forest, so whenever it pours, and I would make some tea for myself under that little tent. Other than that, we stayed over there for 21 days, and the only food I had was tsampa. In the morning tsampa, noon tsampa, afternoon tsampa, but it was really wonderful. Back then I was 20-something, and I had such a great yearning to Dharma. Other than that, I was very content with whatever I have. As long as I had Dharma, it was great. But nowadays, I think people tend to complain about all kinds of situations. Oh, it's too tiring. It's too tiresome to receive the Dharma teachings. I'm too hungry. I'm too thirsty. Now let's look at the next one. According to the sutra requested by Kashyapa, it states, the bondage of view and the bondage of honor, gain, and fame are the most severe types of bondage for all ordained ones. So it is taught by all the noble ones, therefore they must always be abandoned by the ordained. This is taught in the sutra. In the way of the Bodhisattva, it states, I have many possessions and I'm extremely revered, and many people are fond of me. If you are arrogant like this, to state the previous statement, after death, expect the onset of your fears. Moreover, people had abundant possessions, were famous, sweetly renowned, but where have they gone now with their bondage of fame and renown? So we can see that fame and wealth can definitely become a bondage to practitioners. Of course, if you're a bodhisattva or use all of those to carry out bodhisattva activities to benefit sentient beings with the propagation of Dharma, with the help of the fame and wealth, that would be really wonderful. But without that, then many people would be bonded by would be fettered by fame and wealth instead, and that would lead to a failure on the path of practice. Other than that, Lord Atisha said, honor and gain are tight chains for the ordained. One who frees himself from this bondage is like a lotus within fire. In other words, this example points out that the monastics that's not fettered by the wealth and fame are as rare as the lotus that blossoms in fire. Lots of the ordained ones are very much fettered by their disciples, by their retinues, by their also patrons. In this way, they would lose the freedom of benefiting others and lose the freedom of practicing, just as how the worldly beings, such as the leaders of different countries, are usually controlled by the financial group who supports them in their elections. Who are you? Someone wearing a black mask and rushed up. Well, as a practitioner, we really need to be very aware of having our freedom. We should not be fettered by the others, so that we have the freedom to benefit others, to propagate Dharma, to benefit sentient beings, and to practice the Dharma ourselves. Well, I'm stating this because nowadays there are lots of the patrons that support certain lamas and kumpos and tokus so that they can propagate the Dharma. This is really wonderful, but you need to remember that they should not be fettered just because you support them. There are lots of great masters. I've heard that they have to be aware of the patron's mood and emotions whenever they're about to travel to different places. And in this way, that would be quite troublesome. It would be better for them to engage in solitary retreat and to practice. It might be better for them. The other day, I heard that a certain great teacher from a certain area, some of the disciples, for various reasons or unknown reasons, had been competing with one another. And this Lama was actually quite bothered by this group of disciples. For that reason, he then just simply went onto a solitary retreat. Even the relative of his couldn't find him. So as a genuine practitioner, at times of relying on a spiritual teacher or as a monastic, when it comes to relating to the Lama, when it comes to relating to the teacher, though that you have grasping towards them or a sense of admiration, you revere them and maybe make offerings to them, still there's a sense of propriety that you need to adopt. You need to know what to do and what not to do. You need to know the limits, and you need to give others enough space. This is not only to the Buddhists. In fact, in this world, the celebrities and their relationship to the fans could be quite intense as well from time to time. That is why the great masters of the past would say that as a practitioner, we should not have too much grasping towards the patrons or the relatives and friends. If one were to generate too much grasping, then the result would be harmful to both parties. When I first came to Larungar back in 1985, Khenpo Lakshe taught in a large tent to all of us. He said that we should not be too close and too nice to the relatives and to the patrons. If we were to be too close to them, maybe they would feel that, if we're not too close to them, maybe they would feel that, oh, this monastic is not very friendly. I am so nice to him, but he's not really talking to me. But Khenpo Lakshe's teaching is quite meaningful, because if we were to get too close to them, then that kind of relationship won't be long-lasting. So this is really a teaching given by someone who's quite experienced. At times of relating to the others, to the patrons, to our family and relatives and friends, we should have a sense of limit, and we should have a sense of propriety when relating to them. And then Geshe Potowa stated that there are the 4 types of dharma that should be regarded as a corpse, which include fame, praises, offerings, and happiness. It is just like how the venerables from Amdo that takes honey. For that reason, one should view these previously stated 4 as enemies. The honey example is not very easy to understand. I think what it means is that certain great, or people or masters from Amdo area, at times of harvesting honey, they don't break the whole honeycomb. Rather, they only take a part of it. So what he meant is that we should not be grasping onto benefits. Otherwise, they would become enemies that would attack you. There are people such as the patrons, or there are people who may ask the patrons to provide them with all different kinds of materials, such as a car or maybe iPad or maybe a computer. In that way, the patrons would probably lose all of the wealth that he or she has. In this way, it is no longer like how the people from Amdo would harvest honey, which is not the whole honeycomb, but a part of it. I'm not too sure, but I think this is the explanation. And then Shabopa said the following: I cannot stand it if I see others becoming wealthy and famous. In this way, he disapproved of himself and explained how it is a great fault to praise oneself and put others down for the sake of honor and gain. Then, according to Nyugurumpa, he said, you should give rise to the notion of honor and gain being like a trap or a net. Whenever you receive those kinds of honor and gain, people would definitely change. Usually people would change because they have those honor and gain. Even their postures would be different. I think this is a very good reminder to the Dharma teachers as well as the supervisors, the staff members, and the management team, and the kinds of people that take certain position over here. I think it's better to take turns to staff in those different positions. Khenpos and Khemos is not a position that's very easy to exchange, but I think I haven't heard any negative complaints about the Khenpos and Khemos yet. Well, my feelings towards all of the staff members are quite mixed. Sometimes I feel that you're doing really well. Sometimes I feel that you're very behind the time. To give you an example, nowadays we're still using cash to make transactions in Larungar. But when you go into the society, you'll be able to notice that people nowadays are using QR codes or Alipay and all of those. But we're still using those beaten up cash bills. When you look at people in this world, even people providing small services such as polishing shoes or such as wiping the floors, they're using cell phones to make those transactions nowadays. But for some reason, we're still making transactions with cash, which is very 80s and 70s. In certain ways, I think we need to make certain changes. And I think all of the management team, the staff members, they need to pay attention to the changes that's happening in this world. For example, you need to watch the news, such as the death of Shinzo Abe, such as Sri Lanka, such as the prime ministers stepping down from the UK, and so on and so forth. Sri Lanka went bankruptcy, for example, owning about $20 billion US dollars. They're suffering a lot economically, and the people there are suffering a lot because in the past they used to have excellent tourism, but nowadays nobody really wants to affiliate with them anymore, which is very similar to the worldly beings and how they would interact with one another. Anyhow, my point is that you need to know what is happening around the world, without which you won't be able to carry out your work very well. If you are doing certain things out of certain reasons, and you have your reasons, you can tell me, and I would apologize to you. If I've made a mistake in criticizing your way of working, then you can criticize me or even scold me in front of the whole group and the whole Sangha, and I can practice patience. I think it is better to be straightforward with what we think. Now, let's continue to look at the teaching. Furthermore, from Gyaltse Tokme himself, since honor and again bind you, cut your fondness of sense of pleasures. As well as, although you try laboriously to achieve all the perfections of this life, such as honor and again, there is no certainty that you will accomplish them. Even if you achieve them, your craving will increase dramatically, just like a tongue of fire increases when more firewood is added. Moreover, possessing a mind of contentment is the ultimate wealth. Being free from attachment to anything is the ultimate happiness. This is one of my favorite statements. The person with the content mind is the most wealthy. Not grasping, not attached to anything is the ultimate happiness. You need to remember, because suffering comes from grasping, from attachment. If you don't have attachment, then you'll be the most happy, the happiest person. But I think this one is difficult to practice, and Gyaltse Tokme himself practiced accordingly as well. Chubum Zulin Jola